Hey guys, I'm the Comics Kid 2099, and I'm here to. This is not so much a review because what I'm here to talk about isn't a single story. This is more me just telling you how I felt, which I guess if I get right down to it, that is a review. I talked about this on my free comic book day haul. This is a book, The Incredible Hulk, what's it called? Beauty and the Behemoth. I was telling my parents a much better title for this book would have been Betty and the Beast. I guess they would have thought that would have been too silly, but I think it's a better title, and I think it would have given you a better idea of what the book is about. I guess it just didn't click with me that this book was just going to be a collection of various stories about the relationship between the Hulk and Betty Banner until I read the foreword by Peter David. That's when he said that in the foreword, and so I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. And so as such, there's like, I mentioned this in the free comic book day haul, there's like one comic book from 1961, there's one comic book from, 1962, one comic book from 73, then 85, 88, 90, and 91, and 98. So there's not a single story going on here, and in fact, for the first couple of issues, it's incredibly jarring because if you look on the numbering, there's like a decade in between a couple of those comics, and the numbering is kind of misleading because the Hulk had a 6-issue series and then it ended, and then he started showing up in Tales to Astonish, and then eventually Tales to Astonish was renamed The Incredible Hulk. So he had like issue 200 something, but he hadn't been in 200 consecutive issues, if that makes any sense. What did I think about this? I think first and foremost, I have a new least favorite female character of the Marvel Universe, and that is Betty Banner. Now, in the movies, I've always disliked Jane Foster. I thought she was the worst love interest out of all of the characters that we've seen, and I liked Betty Banner okay in the movies that we got. Here, I very quickly came to dislike her. In some of the books written by Peter David, she is flat out very unlikable, and in some, she's better than others. For example, when she was first introduced, she was very timid, very, yes sir, 1950s, anti-feminism, very, let the man do all the work kind of thing, and I'm not going to do anything, that sort of thing. And that's because, whether he meant to or not, Stan Lee and I guess all of his co-creators from the 60s, they were very, I don't want to say they were anti-feminism or anti-women being actual characters, but if you go back and look at the 60s, that's pretty evident that that's going on. The only series that I can think of from the 60s where female characters actually had a personality beyond being the token girl was the Spider-Man series, where you had multiple female characters, but everywhere else, Betty Banner was, or Betty Ross at first, she was just the girl. Jean Grey was just the girl. Sue Storm was just the girl, etc. And as such, I feel like it takes a little while for her character here to really gel, because in the first issue, she's just kind of, oh my, what will I do if Bruce Banner tells me that he loves me? I wish that he would tell me. She's kind of like that, not very interesting at all, and then she faints when she sees the Hulk. And then in the next issue here, she has been transformed into the Harpy, which is her own gamma version of herself. And so we don't really get to see any Betty in that issue. So I thought it was a little strange that they chose that issue, which has very little Betty at all. And in fact, not a whole lot of Hulk, a little bit of Hulk, but, Hulk and Bruce are in it more than Betty is. And then the rest of it, I think everything else, there's one issue written by John Byrne, and I had read that before because I have the Visionaries book that collects all of John Byrne's run, and that's where you finally start to see Betty as a character. And there, she's basically telling off her father, saying, you've ruined my life, I'm going to have this happy moment. And then from that point on, then it's kind of, you quickly realize that just how futile it is when characters get together in stories, because that issue should have been Betty and Bruce's happy ending. They get married finally, and they've been trying to make a go of it for like 20 years at that point. The problem is, as he says, as Peter David says in the afterword of this book, the problem is that comic books are a ongoing thing. They are never going to end, and as such, you need drama to keep the stories going, because stories thrive on drama. And so Bruce and Betty cannot have their happy ending because where would the drama be? And if there's no drama, where would the story be? So then you have to have stuff like Betty almost has a kid, and then there's a miscarriage, and then she leaves him for another man, and then I know later on, around the time of Fall of the Hulk, she leaves him for, what's his name? General Talbot. She leaves Bruce for him again, and so they have to do this thing where in a way, it's like Ross and Rachel from Friends, where they were constantly together and not together, together and not together, only it's worse because it's going on for 40 or 50 years. This has been going on since the beginning of the Hulk, and it's very aggravating when you're trying to read that. And I've only read, this is only 7 or 8 issues long. It's not even that many issues, and I got pretty tired of their relationship just over the course of this book. And honestly, I'm pretty okay with Betty kind of taking a back seat over the last 15 or so years. I know recently she was brought back as the Red She-Hulk, and, whatever, I don't really care about that character at all, and it's pretty easy for me to just go and avoid those issues with her. But honestly, I don't really think the character serves much of a purpose beyond the token girl that Bruce Banner wants to get with. And yeah, she has a personality in the issues written by Peter David and the John Byrne issue, but I feel like that's almost like putting a Band-Aid on a severed limb and saying that you've fixed the problem. Yeah, you've given this non-character a personality, but it's also a little bit too late. It's 20 years after the fact where she finally gets a personality. Now, that may not be fair. There may be a lot of comics from the 70s where she has a personality. I don't know. But from this, it looks like she didn't get a personality until the mid-80s when John Byrne was working on this series. Other than that, there's a few issues here where, there's a fight going on, and that kind of spills over into the next issue, or it was started in a previous issue, and because this will skip large chunks of comic, sometimes you're a little confused. For example, there's one guy who was working for Bruce Banner in conjunction with S.H.I.E.L.D., I think, and that was in the John Byrne issue, and he was a good guy. He was part of the Hulkbuster team, and they were trying to capture the Hulk, who at the time was separated from Bruce Banner, and then in the next issue, which is probably 50 issues later, he's insane. He is a psychopath, and you have no idea why he's doing what he's doing, and he's working for the leader, and so that kind of thing was a little jarring, but it's to be expected in a book like this. But there are times when, even though it skips 50 or so issues in between two issues, it still feels like a continuous story. There are 2 or 3 times where in one of the issues printed, they reference something that happened in one of the other issues printed. So it feels very smooth and organic at times, but then at other times it feels extremely jarring, and like I said, that's to be expected, so I'm not holding that against this book. But if you are wanting a more complete Hulk story, this is not what you should read. And there's plenty of options for you out there. I'm not even going to spend time telling you what you should read. Overall, would I recommend this book? Probably only to a person who likes, I'm going to say no. I was going to say somebody who is more of a fan of romance and stuff like that, because this is about the romance of Betty and Bruce. But this is a big spoiler, so if you don't want me to spoil how this book ends, and a 20-year spoiler by this point, I'm going to go ahead and put my thumb up, so as long as my thumb is up, then mute the video. At the end of the book, Betty dies. So I was going to say, if you like romance stuff, go ahead and buy this, but I'm not even sure if this is appropriate for somebody who likes that kind of stuff, because at the end, it has an incredible downer ending, and I'm sure if this book was printed, say, 3-4 years ago, it would have had a different issue to cap it off to, say, explain how Betty Banner comes back to life, because we know she is back now. So, spoilers are over. I'm still not really sure if I would recommend this to somebody, because if you want to see Hulk smashing stuff, there's a little bit of that, but it's not nearly as present as what you would want. If you want to see the romance angle played, there's a lot of that, but like I said, it's kind of a downer ending. And then if you want to see a continuous story, then that's also kind of not something that you're going to get, because it skips large chunks, like 40 years of Hulk stories in between all these issues. So there was nothing really bad about this, but at the same time, there's nothing that I would heartily recommend to someone either, because I can't really think of a single angle to recommend this to someone for, like, if that makes any sense at all. It's not bad. A lot of these issues were pretty enjoyable, and it definitely makes me wish that all of Peter David's run was collected in trades. I know about half of it is collected in trades, but I really wish all of it was, and then I would go and seek that stuff out, because a lot of what he did here was very interesting, and I would love to read more of that. But as far as its own entity, I'm not sure if I would recommend it, and that's really awful because I didn't hate it. I actually enjoyed reading this for the most part, but I didn't think there was really a level that I could recommend this on, if that makes any sense at all. I'm sure it does to some people. That's all I have to say. I hope that this was a helpful video. I hope that if you've seen this book somewhere and you were thinking about getting it, I hope I was able to help you make a decision one way or the other. If you like this video, I would encourage you to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys probably tomorrow with another kind of video, another review. So I will see you guys then. Have a great day.